What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's Lex, and today we're going to be watching how one joke collapsed a popular YouTube podcast. Now, if you don't know, one of the members of the Impulsive podcast has left a while back, and the infamous Bobby Lee, again, stand-up comedian, podcaster himself, has to be a little bit of what attribute that to leaving, creating some tension in the cast. And the guy is a stand-up comedian himself. I think his name is George, and he couldn't take the heat and he was out of here, man. We're gonna check out exactly what happened here.
Of the Impulsive podcast, Bobby Lee made one single joke which completely wrecked the relationship between the three hosts, Logan, Mike, and most notably George.
He's not coming back? Is he really mad? Is he really mad? Oh, wait, with the guy? No. Do anything wrong.
For context, Logan and Mike created the podcast back in late 2018, and it's safe to say that these two have always had excellent chemistry. Their personalities work well together.
By the way, Impulsive has gone through so many freaking cast members. It's just that third seat seems not to be working out with anybody, man. These two have stuck it out together, though. You got to give it up for the both of them.
They seem to be pretty good friends, and generally speaking, they exhibit a similar level of status. Keeping a permanent third host, on the other hand, has proven much more difficult. The first 150 episodes featured a third host named Spencer, who eventually left the podcast to move to Hawaii, after which the role went to Logan's childhood friend Mac, who'd then also leave after getting into a fight with Mike over their difference in interests. On episode 219...
Man, it's really hard. That third seat seems to be a tough one, man. It seems to be really tough to be just sitting there with both of them. And, the chemistry that Mike and freaking Logan have is pretty good. They kind of bounce off each other a lot, especially Mike. He ends up kind of leading a lot of the times in the podcast, if you guys have seen a couple of their episodes. So, it's just weird adding that third dynamic. Maybe it's just really hard to do that and kind of already establishing what Logan and Mike have together. So we'll see.
In September 2020, the next and most recent third host was announced as George Janko.
Introducing the third co-host of Impulsive, my best friend, George Janko.
Who was certainly different to the previous two. George was introduced as a more emotional counterpart to Logan and Mike, as he had a reputation for wearing his heart on his sleeve, while Logan and Mike were almost the exact opposite. In addition to this, George was a devout Christian, with discussion about his own spirituality, adding another layer of contrast to what had previously been a non-religious show. Outside of Impulsive, George practiced the art of stand-up comedy, although it'd be through comedy that he'd eventually meet his ruin. One thing was glaringly obvious from George's very...
You gotta understand, man, comedians are super sensitive. Super. At least from what I've seen. They're the type of comedians, from what I hear from podcasts and different people around the internet, is that it seems that a lot of them have this chip on their shoulder. A lot of them, can make fun of subjects, but if they're the subject themselves, it's a little bit more difficult to, kind of have that pill to swallow for them for some weird reason. I think as creatives, we all kind of have that weird, chip on our shoulder, a little insecurities, crazy, man.
Very first appearance. He simply wasn't on the same level as Logan and Mike. Logan has succeeded with everything from vlogs to Prime, while Mike has overcome his own set of challenges and has proven himself as a fantastic interviewer who meshes well with almost every guest on the show. George, on the other hand, has always felt a little too much like, just another guy who Logan met at the gym.
Logan, I met him at a gym.
George never had the chance to refine his interviewing skills to the same degree as Logan and Mike, which is only accentuated by his seating position to the right of the guest, making it much harder for George to engage in the conversation. The obvious imbalance between George, Logan, Mike, and usually the guest as well, leaves George with a needy personality and an overpowering desire for approval, leading to over the...
Wait, what? An overpowered desire of approval? I don't think that I would necessarily agree with that. I think it's just more his personality. He's more outspoken. He's very conscious of himself and emotions, which ends up kind of for example, kind of how you preface the video, he wears his heart on his sleeve. That's an exact way to kind of, describe how George was. And maybe at times it did get away of the episodes themselves, but I wouldn't say he was like an attention seeker. I don't think that's a fair point.
Top questions and comments, often producing a clunky viewing experience.
I need to know more about you. Like, how did you figure out that like this entertainment world was your calling?
That's what I was gonna say.
I said it, so.
But I was gonna say.
No, but I said it.
So it's good. It's good.
I was already funnier than the kids around me, so I was like, I could tell the joke that they're gonna make fun of me, but even better. And I made it about myself. So I was like making fun of myself, like really, really self-deprecated myself.
Generally speaking, George's attitude wasn't severe enough to upset any of the guests. However, on episode 346 with Shaquille O'Neal, George was slapped in the face with a bit of a reality check. For the first 11 minutes of the podcast, George didn't say a single word, leading Shaq to confront him about his lack of input.
Hold on, you ain't gonna ask me a question?
Oh, so you start to see where the kind of weird dynamic begins, you know. Wait, let him finish this off. Let's finish this little segment for a little more context, so that way my opinion isn't just lost in the midst of it all.
He likes to wait until he's got the.
Bro, listen, man. I read the Bible a lot when they talk about David and Goliath. I've never seen a giant, and so like I'm literally just I'm a little taken.
You've been sitting over here for 30 minutes, and that's all you can freaking say. Fucking kidding me.
No, he's not gonna say.
That's the question. Jeez.
I'm just sitting.
Are you drunk?
I have one question. Is there
Okay,
any
thank
chance I could, for 2 seconds, put these up so I can hear what's going on?
Take them all. You don't have to ask the producer. Just take things off.
Okay.
After making the excuse that he couldn't hear due to his headphones, George sat quietly for another 11 minutes, after which he was scolded again.
What the fuck are you doing here?
Oh my god. I guess maybe he was just saying that he was starstruck. I guess I'm just being charitable for him. I don't want to fully you know, be so hard on the guy, you know. I kind of liked him. He was okay. He wasn't something that I felt like so passionate about.
He's your partner.
He's the newest.
You might want to give him his 2-week notice. That's the question, dude.
Honestly.
Jeez.
Although maybe with podcasting, especially since I've made a couple of my podcasts with some people, it's kind of hard, and I haven't done like guests or anything, like big guests or anything, so I don't know what it is to be in front of a guest that's so massive like Shaq himself. But like, I'm not talking about size-wise, but size-wise, but I'm talking about popularity-wise. So as far as that, I don't know if you can really find the rhythm of it while also being like kind of entangled in the moment. I wonder if that's also difficult to do. So, you know, we'll see. Maybe I'm being a little bit charitable.
You're just sitting here like a bobblehead going.
Yeah. No, I'm so
question.
sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you because
No,
I
go
couldn't
ahead.
hear, but.
Go ahead.
And it's safe to say that this put a permanent dent in George's confidence. He'd already joked about how difficult it was to be the third host in the past.
It's hard to be the third person on a podcast with
wouldn't
two
say.
very vocal main hosts.
And after the Shaquille O'Neal episode, it was obvious that George's confidence had fallen off a cliff.
And then recently I've been just getting really nervous that I'm not doing well enough for the podcast anymore.
Only 5 episodes after Shaq roasted
Oh, he became self-conscious. No, you can't become self-conscious.
to George, Bobby Lee would join the show for Impulsive
Here we go.
351.
Hey, by the way, I love Bobby Lee, man. Shout out to tigerbelly. So I gotta say, man, Bobby Lee does not hold back, and he will find people's like. I mean, he's a comedian. He's like a living, like already veteran in the comedian. So he's gonna pull out your insecurities in like a slight kind of a passive aggressive way. So you can't really hide with him because he will pull that out. And obviously this happened right now. Watch.
During which one single joke would send the show into turmoil. The episode began with Bobby taking a little jab at George by suggesting that Mike was cooler.
You have everything. Cool friends.
So
you
this-
have cool friends like this guy. What about him? No.
Yet things became a little more contentious when George took it from fun to borderline aggressive.
Some people just don't like sucking dick. Now turn around and know the wisdom I give you.
Whoa.
Wow, that was super aggressive. I wonder if there was already tension building up. I wonder if there was already I mean, it sounds like there was already tension and insecurity within him building up. So I wonder if that just all is manifesting itself right here at this moment, and having a perfect mix of Bobby Lee, like, you know, somebody who doesn't hold back when they feel attacked. He will like dig deep into what your he feels like your insecurities are.
or displaying more arrogance just a few minutes later.
How about you?
First of all, what's my name?
Sensing George's clear insecurity, Bobby began to roast George whenever he got the
easy.
opportunity.
You have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Is that your girlfriend? Without fame, you wouldn't get that.
Although the ultimate roast would come after George went on a 2.5-minute monologue about the struggles he faced in his life.
And I don't mean this in a cocky way, but like, dude, this put me on a very strong map, and it made a lot of my avenues blow up. So I'm very blessed.
I think it's super hard when you're kind of like walking that line of trying to justify who you are, because it could come off as a victim. It could come off as you feeling insecure, because you shouldn't like justify what you are and how you are to anybody, because it almost does the opposite of showing of you posturing. Rather, it does the opposite and shows you more as like somebody who's weak or a victim. It's just that unfortunate nature of like, you're always threading that thin line when you're kind of like justifying like exactly what makes you a good person, because a good person wouldn't mention that they're a good person.
But I didn't know I was gonna be here. So
It's like that's... Are you done? It was just a long monologue.
He was just waiting.
And let me just say something. I loved what you were saying. It was just very long. Yeah,
That's usually me. That's usually.
But you know, I got what you're saying, and you really inspired me, George. Can I say something?
first of all, don't touch me.
Oh, he's
Do not
hurt.
touch me.
My bad. Yeah, we just need writers to edit that down.
He's hurt.
Like if we had a staff of writers, they'd be like, yeah, we'll cut that. But
Yo, why does he have such a square head? Like his head is like a Minecraft head.
I'm sorry.
essentially, it was a really good monologue.
Usually when I do my comedy, I don't have writers in the room. I actually write my own stuff.
Okay, I can tell.
Oh, no way.
Maybe you should get a writer. But my point is this.
For the rest of the podcast, George went into his own little world, except for when Bobby
He got
got his
super
attention just so
insecure.
he could roast him again.
All right, George.
So sad.
What I'm saying is that
better
when
when
you
I
were
finish.
talking, we were here for that 30 minutes.
Eventually leading George to walk off the podcast, get in
Oh,
an Uber,
come
and leave without
on.
saying goodbye. The episode received comments such as, "It's impossible to call yourself a comedian if you can't handle being slaughtered by other comedians, especially the Captain Bob himself."
He's sensitive about his shit, man. He's sensitive about his shit. What did Kanye say?
George tells everyone he's going to be the best comedian alive, but he can't take a joke from the legendary Bobby Lee. It's like a badge of honor. How does he think most comedians communicate with each other? I've always thought George thinks he's funnier than he really is, and when people roast him, he gets super butthurt like this generation. Things became worse for George after this video by Jamari gained well over 1 million views, leading George to address the criticism in the following episode of Impulsive by arrogantly stating that he enjoyed all the hatred.
I love that people were just commenting and getting so steamed. It made me realize like, oh, I really don't care. I want it. I want to be in their heads more. Like I like
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. If that was true, you would have stayed and you would have pushed through the whole entire thing. Maybe come with a couple of comebacks. This is super defensive mode right here. That isn't true.
Love how George is trying to act like he's not heard about this when he had to leave the pod because Bobby Lee, out of all people, almost made him cry. Dude is a clown.
Exactly.
A week after George responded, Logan appeared on Bobby Lee's podcast, Tigerbelly, where Bobby took a moment to talk about George's behavior.
What he did was unprofessional.
Yeah.
I was a guest.
Yeah.
He walked out on a guest.
Yeah.
If this guy right here walked out on a guest, he would be reprimanded.
Before roasting him yet again.
If you had walked out, right, it would have been like, oh, it's over. But him walking out was just kind of like, let's keep going.
Yeah, I guess that he's just saying how like insignificant that walkout was. You know, it didn't mean anything. Whereas Logan, I just don't know where he stands on this. He's just allowing his friend to be like butchered like this. So, I mean, he's kind of even laughing at him himself. Like, I wonder what that kind of shows him as a friend. Like, what does that mean? You know, you're just sitting there laughing at your own friend.
Bobby and Logan then decided that they should get George on a call,
Can you give me his number?
You want to settle this right now?
Yeah, I'm going to call him right now.
leading Bobby and George to fix their relationship.
I want to apologize for my behavior on your podcast.
Bobby Lee, you shut your mouth. I'm apologizing to you. I left you. You were our guest.
I want to pull back my apology then.
Oh my god.
I do. Because I literally did not feel sorry.
Ow.
I pulled out of the apology. I don't feel sorry.
George is walking it back. He's walking it back. He read the Reddit comments. He read the YouTube comments. He read it all.
I will accept yours, right? And hopefully, you know, when I come back to your podcast, we can make it right.
However, it was obvious that the whole thing had caused a serious fracture between George and Logan, becoming most obvious when they get into an almost hour-long argument.
Oh, that's right. When they were arguing about how, like, religion and his like taking accountability and things like that.
5 episodes after the Bobby Lee podcast.
I know people that hate me, that treat me better about my faith than you, and you're my best friend. One that really hurt me is you told me I need a therapist because I believe in Jesus. That one hurt me.
No, I didn't. I said you need a therapist because Jesus isn't quite doing it for you.
No, you
which
didn't.
is
No, you
which is
didn't.
Damn, that's kind of harsh.
I won't stand down. No, you didn't. What do I need a therapist for then?
Jesus isn't doing it for you, and I
What do
believe
I need
you're.
a therapist for?
I don't believe you're as emotionally mature as you could be.
I'm not emotionally intelligent. Could you pick a time and frame any day?
I would say so. I would agree with Logan here. He's kind of saying it in a harsh way, though. I would definitely agree with that, George. With George, I think he's not a little kind of unaware of himself. Maybe quite the opposite. He's too aware of himself, which is creating like this insecurity, which is creating this dynamic between the cast here, which is creating, you know, it's kind of a domino effect of himself. And I guess what Logan is really saying is that, like, even though he's saying it in a really harsh way, what he's saying is that, like, you can't just put your whole like faith into faith, right? You kind of also have to do your due diligence. You got to do your work. You got to put in the effort into understanding your mind, your emotions, and what is triggering you. Why are you feeling insecure? Why are you feeling the way you feel? And just not leverage that and try to go and just say, well, Jesus got me. You know, whether you believe or not, at the same time, we do have to do our own work on ourselves and allow ourselves to mature emotionally, understand each kind of, and understand like what our triggers are, our traumas, or what's kind of like allowing us not to get to the next level with our relationships.
Of our life.
Here's one. 3 weeks ago, when you were sitting in that chair, you stormed off this exact podcast because you were upset about something a comedian said.
Logan did apologize in their very next episode together.
My attitude towards you on that episode and my belittlement of your beliefs was not appropriate at all.
However, George seemed to realize that his days on Impulsive were numbered, as he'd create his own podcast before clickbaiting the first episode
Damn,
with
he
the
has
title, Why
1.6
George Janko is
mil?
Not on Impulsive, implying that he'd left the group. George used the video to explain that this hadn't really happened.
Obviously, I'm still on Impulsive, guys. For any of you guys that are like, oh, their beef
No, you're not.
situation,
You're out.
and now he's starting.
You can't. Here's the thing with entertainment. Something I've learned: you can't have one foot in and one foot out, especially when it's a collective group thing. It's just a weird. It's just like it just never ends up working out. One person leaves, things become destructive. It's just like this weird dynamic, and it's like I feel like, unfortunately, it's either you're in or you're out. You know, you can't have one foot in and one foot out.
Own like lane.
Even going so far as to say their relationship was as good as ever.
Me, Logan, and Mike are in a perfect place.
Yet it was obvious that this clickbait
Again, maybe he's just trying to make himself believe that.
video had annoyed Logan.
I'm just doing this for a couple weeks so then I could leave and clickbait that why I left Impulsive.
It's good. That's good. It's a good
Facts.
strategy. It's been done. It's been done many times, and it works.
By who? Oh,
Well, you can make a real living for yourself, you know? We've seen the model.
Resulting in more and more uncomfortable moments on the podcast.
You don't give a shit about this show anymore, let's be honest. It's like bands that hate each other that have to get on stage every night and play for the audience. Like, yo, let's do our hit song. We don't like it. We have to sit
That's
here
not
and
true.
pretend
That's
to
not
be
true. I
friends.
like Mike. George,
Well, he's about to
You
redeem
don't say.
Only
no
3
way.
episodes after comparing themselves to a band forced to play together, George disappeared from the show without warning, leading fans to speculate on whether or not he'd been booted. Mike refused to elaborate on the situation when asked by Aiden Ross.
Why is Georgie not on Impulsive anymore? Is that like you don't answer that?
No, I don't want to talk about that.
Although only
'Cause
1
he's
month
out,
later
he's
on
gone.
an episode of Jeff FM with Mike and Tanner Mojo, Tanner
He checked himself out. He clocked out. He has 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
accidentally said this.
We are the new Impulsive. I'm sorry.
we are. It's fine.
Y'all having like a rebrand, like George is leaving. Like, this is it.
At around the same point in time, George unfollowed both Logan and Mike on
Yeah,
Instagram,
of course he did that.
which was followed by Impulsive changing their profile picture from
Of
this
course he
to
did that.
this, as well as their banner from this to this. All of this had happened silently with no input from the hosts. However, on the 26th of April 2023, George would post to Twitter, "I wasn't going to talk, but now I am," implying that some pretty heavy stuff had gone down behind the scenes.
He's getting pretty good engagement, right? Like it's actually not that bad.
Yet on the 31st of May, approximately 1 month later, another tweet was made stating, "To the impulsive fans,
3.3?
I'm so sorry I can't speak about things not my choice. I do love you guys, and for those of you sending me the clip of them talking shit, it's all love. I've already moved on from that toxic environment."
No, you have not. Like, just be honest with yourself, dude. Just share how you feel. Like, why do you keep avoiding it? Why you keep dismissing your own feelings? Why are you doing that?
Confirming that he was no longer on the podcast. The post received replies slamming George such as, "Mate, you sat there not speaking for 90% of the time. What are we missing? Your silence?" To which he'd respond by stating, "You think I wanted to be quiet, ha ha ha." Yet this kind of statement is representative of
it's
why
always
he's
gonna be
unsuitable
vague.
for the podcast. He cares way too much about how other people view him. If you're
That
the
is so
type
true.
of person who gets defensive and feels like you always have to be in the right, you're probably better suited to a Facebook comment section and not a career on YouTube. Despite this, George has seen some success with the George Janko show.
He's getting
yet
pretty
Logan
good
hasn't
numbers.
been able to resist roasting George's low view count.
I love this outlet, and it exists because people watch. And without people watching, I just have a show like.
Since then, George has stated that he simply wants to distance himself from Mike and Logan.
I'm at a point right now where I want distance from both of them. I don't want anything to do with it, and I just move on.
Which seems to be the best possible outcome for everybody involved.
That's unfortunate, man. That's when you get really insecure, when you really are not addressing the kind of elephant in the room. You kind of keep putting it under the rug, and it shows more and more about himself. And that just is really unfortunate about him, man. If you don't face your problems, if you don't acknowledge something is wrong, if you don't, I mean, we don't know exactly what 100% went around behind the scenes with Logan. How Logan reacted was kind of harsh. We don't know if he was harsh behind the scenes as well. Like, we don't know exactly the dynamic that is going on, but what we can see is that maybe that he's a little bit kind of, too aware of his emotions, too ready to justify who he is, or ready to play this character when he should just be happy, confident about who he is, and kind of work that way. It's unfortunate that they broke up and stuff, but it's the way of the game. It's the way how entertainment business is always gonna be, man. Especially how group things are. You gotta have a real tight knit in order to be creating something really impactful and something massive like that. So we'll have to see, man. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you smash that sub button, and make sure that you catch me every single time that I post a video. So I really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified for every video that I drop. I really appreciate that. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.